Welcome to the Fundamental Escape podcast. I'm your host, Mark Fitzgerald, and today I'm joined with a friend of mine for a number of years now, quite a few years. I've lost count. John Botha. Do you want to say hello to the people there, John?
Hello, everybody out there in Fundamentalist podcast listening land.
Cool. So
you're all looking very lovely tonight. Thanks for listening in.
Yeah, so we're in for a treat tonight because John and I go back a while. We used to be street preachers together, didn't we?
We did. Back in the dark days.
John was a hero of mine. I aspired to be like him, and
as everyone did.
Totally. Yeah, no, he would jump up on park benches and yell at random people and tell them they were wicked sinners and all that kind of thing, and it was quite a spectacle.
Yeah, I enjoyed yelling at people. I really did.
You really did.
I missed that.
Yeah, you did. I think there was a bit of an inner child in there trying to get attention. You know, like just wanting the love. So, do you want to let's go back a little bit? Like, let's rewind. So, you talk, if you can, a little bit about how you grew up. Did you grow up religious or?
I grew up my dad was an atheist and my mum was very Roman Catholic. I was sent to a Catholic high school and got went through all the rigmarole becoming a Catholic when I was younger. So, yeah, I got dragged along to church every week pretty much.
Okay. So,
yeah, and I had a faith in God, certainly. I had a lot of fear and, tried to do the right thing and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
From an early age.
Yeah,
until I was about 18.
So there's obviously a bit of a leap, I guess you could say, between being a Catholic and being like a evangelical fundamental street preacher. So
yeah, there's a bit of a leap.
Where did that kind of come into play? How did that sort of take place?
That was when I was 18 and I just finished high school, and I'd made some friends at school who were very much into the born again stuff, and they started to indoctrinate me a little bit, and they convinced me to come along to their church meetings. And there was a boat in port, because I lived in a port town in Littleton, and there was a boat in there called the Doulos, which was a Christian boat, and I went along to meetings there for about a week, and at the end of it I was pretty much indoctrinated, because I already believed in a way, but they just told me pretty much, you might believe that you're still going to hell because you're not born again, and all that sort of jazz.
Yeah.
So, I went in the womb. I went back in the womb, and I got born again out of God's vagina.
Yeah, fantastic.
I slid right out of there, a new creation.
Yeah. So fast forwarding back to where we came across each other. So we met at a evangelism boot camp, I guess you could say.
Yes, that was run by Ray Comfort's cronies in New Zealand Living Waters.
Yeah, and it was
still going, I think. But
it is, yeah.
I'm not in touch with them.
It is. It's interesting, the whole evangelism world, because you get a whole bunch of evangelists in a room, and it's sort of a funny dynamic.
It is, yeah. There's a lot of vying for attention.
Yeah. So
who's got it's all about who's got the biggest, a bunch of guys in a room measuring each other's Bibles.
Yeah, so to speak, metaphorically. I think we understand the reference there.
Or who's got the biggest faith, Who's believes more than the other one.
Evangelical pissing
like the
contest.
competition.
Yeah,
the competition.
Yeah, totally.
On who's the best Christian.
So, if you could, for the listeners, obviously I know a little bit myself, but to take, somebody who's never been involved or witnessed kind of street preaching in the way that you were involved with it, in the way you kind of undertook it, I guess, could you sort of paint a picture of what was, what the process was, how that played out in your interactions with people and the responses. And I guess what I mean is like what was going on in your mind at the time when you were doing that sort of thing.
Oh, I wasn't doing it because I cared about people, that's for sure. It was more an exercise into seeing, you know, how true to the Word of God I could be and how good a Christian I could be. And, you know, I was scared at the time. I was very much motivated by fear on going to hell and whether or not I was a true Christian and all that sort of stuff there. So it was mostly motivated by fear. And, you know, I can't tell you that I cared about the people that I spoke to because I'd be lying if I told you that. I didn't.
But at least I guess
it was all about me being a better Christian, you know?
Yeah. But you felt as though that you needed to care about them, or at least you needed to be seen to be caring about them.
Yeah, I felt like, you know, because of the teaching that Ray Comfort gives you, you know, you're not a real Christian unless you go out and seek and save the lost and that sort of thing. So I was trying to be a good Christian, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
But I enjoyed it too. I like yelling at people, like I said before. You know, I like making fun of people in public and things. I enjoy that. I do that in my personal life. So having to do it on a larger scale is enjoyable.
Yeah.
You know, I like yelling at people. Have you got any snippets that you can play?
We might be able to throw in some clips here if we do.
Throw in some snippets.
Yeah, you have to send me through some clips.
It's nothing homophobic.
And it's an awful thing. It's a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. God will destroy you in your sin. He will give you a body that will burn for all eternity, but never be consumed. He will give you a body that can feel immeasurable pain for all eternity. If you don't repent, if you don't turn from your sin, if you don't turn from your pornography, young man, if you don't turn from the lust in your mind, if you don't turn from having sex with girls, if you don't turn from your sin, God will give you justice. Who puts the breath in man? It's God.
You come to a big bang, or should I say half a bang? You got half a brain.
What are you willing to trade for eternal life? Are you willing? What sin is it? What pet sin do you want to hold on to? Is it your internet pornography, sir? Does anyone have any questions?
So I guess it's interesting to me. Like, one thing I find interesting is the difference between a Christian who claims to believe the same things that you and I did as street evangelists, but they don't feel the need to act on it. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I find interesting is like people who say that, you know, they believe in heaven and hell and they believe that people are going to burn forever, but it doesn't motivate them to do anything. Like, what do you think is the difference between somebody who does take action and somebody who doesn't take action?
Well, I think it all comes down to fear again. You've got someone on one hand who believes, says they believe anything, but they fear men. And then you've got the other one who says they believe anything, but they fear God more than men. So because they fear God more than men, they're not ashamed to go out there and make a fool of themselves, you know, for the good cause, rather than the person who's just afraid of what people think of them, you know? So in a lot of ways, I'd see those people who wouldn't preach as cowards and you know, not real Christians, really.
Yeah.
That's the way I used to look at it anyway. But I had people in my life, you know, I was married at the time, and she wasn't a preacher, but, you know, I made sure she gave out pamphlets and, you know, did what she could, or just left them in phone boxes or something, you know, so that she would feel like she was a real Christian as well. But she had a lot of doubts back then, you know. There's a lot of 5-point Calvinism going on at the time.
Yeah.
I won't get into that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to sum up Calvinism, I guess, to people that are uninitiated, it's essentially the idea that God selects people randomly for salvation, right, against their will, most likely.
He makes them believe.
Yeah, just picks and chooses who gets saved and who doesn't. And
yeah, it's all predestined before the creation of the world, who's going to be saved and who's not.
Yeah.
People don't really have a choice in the matter.
Yeah.
Some are destined for heaven and some are destined for hell.
Yeah. And it's interesting to me, I guess, kind of fast-forwarding a little bit, you know, because we could drag on and talk about all this stuff for our ages, I guess, but like to the point where you and I are at now. I mean, I guess you and I are sort of at very different places in many ways, and in many ways we are in the same way, like we do agree as well, but it's sort of like you're left with this idea, like, you know, everybody wants to label people and put them in a box and, you know, kind of, being the fact that we've gone through this sort of system of being these evangelical street preachers and blah, blah, blah. Like, people don't know what to do with that now, so they have to kind of throw a label and say, well, you're a false convert and you never believed and blah, blah, blah. So what are your thoughts on all that? Like, I mean, have you kind of, dealt with much of that kind of,
To be honest, the only time I've really dealt with that was with Ray Comfort when I was blogging on his website.
Yes.
And he started chatting away to me, basically saying that all the whole time I was a false convert and I didn't believe, and that's been proven by my behaviour now. And, but to be honest, I left everything to do with Christianity, so I didn't have anyone in my life, and they didn't try to keep in touch with me either, I must say. But I didn't have any conversations with any of my Christian friends because I just didn't see any of them anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't hear from them anyway, which was strange. But I did actually bump into a Christian friend on the train about a year or so after my deconversion, I think you can call it. And I actually pretended to be a Christian because I just couldn't bear listening to his rhetoric, and seeing his disappointment. Yeah. Seeing the disappointment in his eyes, and hearing his judgments and all the rest of it, because I had what's going on at the time personally. I was going through a bit of a hard time at the moment, and I didn't want people judging me really, so I found that it was easier just to stay away from the Christians than it was to actually tell them. To this day, the majority of the people that I knew don't know whether or not I'm a Christian or not. I don't have any contact with them.
Yeah, I guess that makes it easier. I guess. It's funny to me. I've had a few experiences like that. Like I think I remember when I moved to the city that I live in now, and I, for a while I used to, I'd be in town. Admittedly, like I'd had a few drinks, but I would like rail against these evangelists on the street, and it was kind of like my way of kind of. It was almost like my way of. Yeah, it was sort of like I was yelling at myself, like I was trying to deal with my past and try and reconcile where I'd been, and it just blew my mind, like where people were at, and I was like, "Are you serious? Like, how can you believe this? Like, how can you be like this sort of cold, removed idea that God is so detached from people and that He's gonna burn people forever and all this kind of nonsense." I was like, it just doesn't make sense to me anymore. Like, and I remember this girl one time, she was in a group with these people that were doing some street evangelism, and she looked at me and she said, she referred to me as a walking contradiction, and because they knew, like I'd been open with them about my past and things like that, and she's like, "Oh, you're a walking contradiction," and I was like, "Okay," and it's interesting.
Like she'd known you for all of 2 minutes at this time.
Pretty much. Yeah, you can imagine.
Pretty quick to judge, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think there's so much fear involved. Like there's so much unknownness and fear, and people. And this is the thing, like. There's an author that I really enjoy, Peter Rollins. I'm actually hoping to speak to him in January. He wrote a book called The Idolatry of God, and it was the subtitle of the book was Breaking Our Addiction to Certainty and Satisfaction. And it's sort of this idea that, I think it's interesting to people who don't believe in God anymore, or never did, I guess, but it's this sort of notion that, we cling to these ideas of certainty, and it's like I look back at my time in street preaching, and I think my faith was more in the idea of certainty and having the answers than in any type of deity at all, because it's like a drug. I'm sure you can resonate with that. Like it is totally like a drug. Like you feel like you're on top of the world. Like. You have all the answers, and nobody else does. I mean, you came across to me like that 1,000%.
You're insinuating that I'm knowledgeable about drugs.
But you know what I'm saying, right? Like when I met you, John. Like
I know exactly what you're saying.
You came across with more. You came across the certainty of like 100 people.
I was extremely. I would say more than the average Christian. Because I was so deep into it, I was probably more brainwashed than most Christians.
Yeah.
You know, the amount of hours I'd spend daily reading the Bible every day, and a lot of my Christian friends didn't read or pray as much as I did, you know, so I was very, very deeply indoctrinated.
Yeah, yeah.
In it, so, you know, that could be part of the certainty. But inside, honestly, I was not full of doubts, but I was doubting myself more than anything.
Yeah.
You know, doubting whether or not I truly was a believer, or whether I was a false convert, or, you know, just the whole business. Obviously, I was, because, you know, look at me now. But yeah, but it's you know, I certainly didn't feel certain at the time. You know, I was doing it, you know, out of fear mainly, and out of wanting to be approved of men, and, you know, people to look up to me and stuff like that as a good Christian, and, you know, all that.
Oh, totally. I was a devout
and trying to please
follower.
God as well, who's very difficult to please.
Yeah,
he's a very stern father.
Yeah. And it's interesting, because I mean, you and I have definitely, like, we've been through similar experiences somewhat. I've talked on the podcast about my own sort of issues with mental health and stuff like that, and I think it's hugely tied in with religion, and I don't know what your sort of thoughts are on that, but it's crazy. Like, it literally kind of does your head in, right? Like, if you become this person that actually believes these things that most people claim to believe, that it's going to have a psychological impact, right?
Yeah, well, it's like you're inviting a mental illness. You know, you're trying to listen, you're encouraged to listen to voices in your head, and encouraged to have this whole fantasy life in your head. You know, that all the symptoms that you soon start to have are similar to schizophrenia and all those sorts of things.
Yeah. And I do believe that there's a huge correlation between religion and mental illness. And I personally think religion is a mental illness. Yeah.
I think you need to be, you know, and not to disparage those who have real mental illnesses, but I think, you know, your mind has to be broken down to embrace this sort of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is scary. You know? There is, I mean, joking aside, I guess, like, there is an interesting element to it that's quite a dark side to it, where, you know, you've got these people in power who are, you know, there's money involved, and there's power and authority, and, you know, people are kind of making a name for themselves, and it's like, who are they dragging along for the ride? Like, these kind of feeble, like, people who don't really know what's happening, and it's
like a cult, isn't it? It's very similar to a cult, and, you know, I think religions are cults personally.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the thing is,
some religions are cults. I think they're all cults. They all encourage brainwashing and control and fear and domination and slavery and all the rest of it. You know.
Yeah, and I suppose this is where we would disagree a little bit, because I wouldn't necessarily just say that religion as such is a cult. I think any system that doesn't encourage free thinking or questioning or doubts or whatever is problematic. You know, if you're not allowed to ask certain questions, then that's a problem in my mind.
Well, it's cult-like. You know, maybe I shouldn't say it's a cult, but it's very cultish. Yeah.
Well, I think the issue is that when you kind of make universal statements about certain things, say this is all a cult, then like your statement almost can become cultish, you know?
Yeah, well, that's true too, you know?
And again, I mean, I sort of wonder,
that's just my opinion. I'm not saying that's the truth. That's just my opinion. You know, that's just what I think.
Yeah.
I'm not saying everyone needs to think the way I think, but
and
that's just how I personally view it, you know?
Yeah, and I'm interested as well. Like, I know we've had conversations about, like, the whole thing of atheism and stuff like that, and
don't get me started on it.
Yeah, I know. Well, this is funny, and this is what people listening will probably find quite interesting, is that, you know, you seem as indifferent and disconnected from the idea of atheism as you do from religion. And
well, for me, atheism. I was talking to a friend today who's you know, familiar with Richard Dawkins and his books, and I've read a couple of Richard Dawkins books, and he says basically atheists preach against preaching. They preach, but they preach against preaching. They say, Christianity's bad, preaching's bad, but they're doing the same thing as the Christians. They're spending just as much time and effort talking about these things than the Christians are. And, they're just as fundamental, I would say, a lot, in my opinion. A lot of them are just as fundamental as the Christians that they're belittling,
Yeah, well, not to get too like Tony Robbins or anything, but he often says like where focus goes, energy flows. Like it's that whole idea like you become in the image of what you focus on, and I think that's totally true. And it's interesting. Yeah, I definitely concur with that, because I think that. Yeah, religion. I mean, atheism does become a sort of religion in and of itself, and I think it's this human nature that we have, which is like this tribalistic, like in and out grouping, and this is our tribe, and we're right, and you're wrong, and I don't know. I just wonder, and again, I'm not gonna, put the burden on you to like sort of solve the world's problems or anything, but. What would be the ideal world where, like people say, would like a world without religion, or like a world where everybody just thinks for themselves, or like what do you reckon?
Oh God, I don't really care about other people, to be honest.
Just each to their own.
I don't care what the religious people do or what the atheists do. I just, I live my own life and do what I want to do.
So yeah, that's something I think will be interesting to dive into a little bit, because I think going from someone who sincerely believed these really serious ideas about faith and afterlife and stuff like that, like this is something, and this is a genuine question, because I genuinely struggle with this myself, because I've often said like sometimes I feel like I believe because I don't know how not to believe. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've talked about this a little bit as well. And I think there's a lot of people out there, and it's genuinely something I think is an interesting topic to open up, because I think, there's people, when you grow up with it all your life, you don't. It's not like you can just flick a switch, I mean, the guy Doug Paget, who I spoke to on the podcast, he kind of talked a little bit about belief and was saying like, he's like, we live with our beliefs, like he was like. It's kind of harsh to kind of hold people responsible for their beliefs in many ways. He's like, you can't just, wake up one day and go, I'm going to switch off this belief. It doesn't sort of work like that,
Yeah, I don't know, because it kind of did for me. One day I believed it, and the next I just thought this was absurd. And I just thought, I came to the point in my life when
Did you take a drug for that, or?
Hey?
Was there a pill for that, or?
It might be.
Because quite honestly, I mean, I know this might sound like I'm going against everything I talk about on my podcast at times, and I don't think it is, but I think it would be convenient to like flick a switch and just turn the whole thing off sometimes, and just like get on with your life and just live. I almost find myself envious of people that sort of just have a very simplistic approach to life, and this is all we have, and just enjoy it, and I kind of wish I could be more like that.
Yeah, well, it doesn't always happen for people like it did for me. For me it was a very quick sort of decision that I made. I was going through quite a stressful time at the time, and I was going through a marriage breakup and all sorts of things. So, it wasn't a pleasant time. It wasn't that I just decided I don't need this anymore. It's not something that I even believe in anymore. I don't know why I'm wasting my time on this, which is why I don't spend time listening to atheists either, because I've wasted too much time on religion.
Yeah.
One side or the other. I'm not going to waste any more time on it. Life's too enjoyable without it. I don't need to have it in my life anymore. It doesn't add anything to me. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, I don't see there's no reason to believe anymore. I don't see that. There's no proof, there's no evidence, there's just nothing. It's just a big void. And look at the other religions that are causing all sorts of trouble in the world today without naming any of them. You can just see the mob mentality taking over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With those who are religious zealots, and it's just not something I'm interested in anymore.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, I guess I sort of feel like we could talk for so long about these kind of things, but maybe we should.
Well, we can talk about anything else. I'd be happy to.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. It's sort of interesting to me. Like, I sort of wonder, like, you know, going from this approach that you had of life, where it's like, you know, where you sort of feel like you have all the answers to, like, this is where you go when you die, and this is like, you know, I saw you.
Not all the answers, though. Just the answers to where do you go when you die. That was about the only answer I had.
Yeah, this is true. but what other?
That's all it was. Where do you go when you die? And your whole life's living. I'm just waiting until I'm dying, pretty much.
That's what you know. Ray
I'm
Comfort,
hoping I don't get punished when I die. It's a whole...
I mean, Ray Comfort used to say that on his videos. You know, he used to say, "This life is a waiting room. It's just a holding room until you die." And I mean, I guess that let's dive into that a little bit, because I think, you know, I mean, you and I are both very familiar with sort of Ray Comfort and his teaching, and you know, he's come up on the podcast, and I mean, we interviewed Travis Owens, who was in his movie.
Well, Ray Comfort's just a sad little man, sad little angry little man who found a long time ago that he could make money out of this one little message that he has, and he's just spent his whole life just marketing it in different ways. This exact same simple message that anyone can pick up from 5 seconds of listening to him, and he's marketed it, and he's made it into a business, and he's made a lot of money out of it. You know, let's not lie about it. I'm sure that's not the reason he got into it.
Totally.
I think it's very lucrative.
Totally.
But I don't have much respect for him at all.
Totally.
Personally, I don't think he's genuine at all.
I mean, I would find myself agreeing with you wholeheartedly, but it was interesting because when I talked to this guy Travis Owens, you know, he was in his movie Audacity, and you know, Travis is a guy who he grew up religious. He grew up in a Christian family and stuff like that, and he's real open about that. But he's not religious whatsoever, and even he was almost more defensive of Ray and his intentions than any Christian I've heard, you know, and I found that quite interesting. You know, he was sort of saying, well, I disagree completely with the premise of what he's saying, but at the same time... Maybe we should edit
out what I said about Ray.
No. I mean, that's your opinion, dude. I mean, that's what you think.
Well, it's just an opinion, but I sounded a bit, you know, psychotic.
No, we don't edit that kind of stuff. That's gold. I mean, but again, I mean, your perception of the whole situation versus someone like this guy Travis. I mean, Travis is a guy who got paid to be on this movie and work with Ray, and it's a completely different, you know, relationship.
Well, it's a different relationship, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I've never met Ray. The only dealings I've had with him were online, and you know, he was most disingenuous and uncaring and belittling, and you know, all those. So that's all I have to judge him by. Really, is by my
it doesn't surprise me. And I remember, you know, back in the day, I remember reading those comments that you referred to about these blogs and things that were, you know, referred to.
And I don't care. I don't hold anything against the guy. I could care less about him, you know.
But it's
I guess he's my point. Thing, and he's making a lot of money out of it. I thought about doing the same thing myself.
I guess my point is that, you know, of course Ray has to say, you know, to be, you know, what's the word, like. To be authentic to his message, he has to say, "Oh, you were a false convert," or "I was a false convert because we stepped away or walked away," or whatever you want to say. Like,
yeah, it's got to fit in with his.
It has to, you know. He's got no choice. He's painted himself into this corner where
he has, yeah.
You know, so again, I mean. Again, my perception from this guy Travis, who I talked to, was sort of saying, well, you know, his impression of Ray was, I totally disagree with his premise and the message, but you've got to give him respect because he's, you know, doing what he believes is, you know, the right thing to do based on these ideas. And that's quite interesting, and I found that quite challenging coming from him because I was like, really, are you serious? Like, but
if you dig deeper though, what's his message doing to people? You know, what's it doing
totally.
Christians?
What
psychological damage is it doing? You know,
I've talked to this. I with Brian McLaren about this. Like, I had a friend.
Oh yeah, spoke to him.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just referencing all these people I spoke to. Look at me,
Jesus.
It's shameless promotion. It's all I have. But
yeah, I'll let you have it.
thank you, I appreciate that. But we were talking about the whole idea of, like, I mentioned a friend of mine who he called me up one day and was like, "Oh, I'm totally keen on evangelism. I want to share the gospel, and I'm more keen than you are." And he was like totally zealous. And then I went round to his house and watched some Ray Comfort DVDs with him, and we ended up watching the whole like True and False Conversions DVD. And my friend went from, like, in one day was like, "I want to save the world," to like, "Holy crap, I'm not even saved." And,
yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah,
that's
and honestly, like, joking aside, this is a guy who ended up, having serious mental health issues. Even to this day, it still affects him. And I don't know what to do with that, because I'm like, there's part of me that kind of feels like I was kind of responsible because I exposed him to these DVDs. And I don't know where to put that in my head, It's problematic. To say the least.
Yeah, well, it's a similar thing to my wife at the time as well.
Yeah.
It wrecked her, totally wrecked her.
It's sad. There is a real dark side to this, and this is why...
a dark side, but it's a nice dark side.
But this is why...
He's a nice sociopath.
I think, you know what, I think this conversation has been a long time coming, and I think I'm glad to be able to pick your brain on this, because I think you've got a lot to say, and I think even though you don't believe in God or you don't believe in religion or any of this stuff anymore, I feel like you have some worthwhile things to say, and I feel like you need to be heard, and people have, should give you the time to say what you need to say, because I think, it's...
But you've been doing most of the talking.
Really?
Yeah. Well, thanks. I appreciate your kind words there. It's there was a point of time where I thought about a similar sort of how to escape from fundamentalism website, or actually to get to try and help people, but to get out of fundamentalism. When I first got out of it myself, I thought, this feels pretty good. I'd like to share this with other people, but life got in the way of it, and to be honest, now I just don't care enough about it to try and help people. It's up to them to come to their own decision. It's not up to me. I don't want to be an evangelist anymore. I don't want to preach to people and try to convert them, even if it's to deconvert them. I still don't want to rant and rave like I used to do.
Well, I guess since I've been talking too much, apparently. Let's wind this down. No, but I think I guess instead of me talking, I'll ask you to talk about me. But like, I'm just curious to know, like, what are your thoughts on what I'm doing with my podcast, and the intentions, and like, do you, even though you don't believe in God or anything like that, like I say, do you still think that it's potentially a good thing that people can be exposed to these conversations?
I have to be honest, I haven't listened to... I've listened to one of them. I just haven't, because my mind just doesn't care enough, because I've heard another one, and it was just the other guy's just preaching it, preaching. It's just the same as the fundamentalism. You might call it escape from fundamentalism, but no offence to any of your guests or anyone that you speak to.
I asked for this.
They sound to me, to someone like me, they sound fundamentalist, and everyone seems to have the same sort of trait where they want to convert people to their own way of thinking, and they're all preaching with it, and everyone's just preaching at each other.
It's still about having
It's still
answers.
about believe what I believe, It's very much,
right.
This is what I believe, and I'm just going to get it out there.
Which,
I don't care what I believe.
Which episode did you listen to? I'm just curious.
Oh, God, I'm trying to remember, and I feel bad.
Oh, that's all right.
I think, no, it was one you did on, who did you have as a guest? It was Canadian. Oh, God.
The Kevin Miller, the first one? The one about hell?
Yeah. Hellbound.
That's right. That was
and
episode 1.
I've watched that documentary, and he's very fundamentalist in the way he sounds. He sounds like a fundamentalist. You know, he still wants people to believe what he believes and to think the way he thinks. Yeah. And you know, he's still trying to convert people, and he's very evangelistic. And whereas I'm the other end of the spectrum, I could care less about what people think or what people feel, what they believe.
And
I don't want anyone to believe like
it's
me.
Interesting, and
I don't believe in anything anyway.
I would totally encourage, well, you and anyone listening to this, to listen to the episode with Barry Taylor, because he is, to me, he was one of my favorites, because, like, this is a guy, he was the road manager for AC/DC on the Highway to Hell tour. So,
oh, sweet.
Like, he's lived the sex, drugs, and rock and roll life. And he made some statements that were pretty interesting to me, where he said, he goes, you know what? He goes, I wasn't that interested in God. And he goes, and you know what? He goes, this sounds really bad to say, given what I've been doing for the last 30 years. He goes, I'm still not that interested in God. He's like, I was just more interested in becoming a better person, like, sort of thing. And he said, one of the things he said, I'm not so much interested in telling people what to think, but I'm more interested in encouraging people to think, you know, which I'm sure that even
I used to think that way. I used to think maybe I can help people to think for themselves, and you know. Yeah. But now I honestly don't care. I don't care what people do.
So you just do you feel like? I guess let's wrap up with this, because I think it's interesting. I want to bring it back to your kind of story, where it's sort of like you've been this person that's been about this agenda of converting and saving and whatnot, to like, I'm just done with that. Like, I don't want to be... It sounds to me like you're saying, I want to be a person who's just living my life and getting on with it, and you know, and I can totally appreciate it.
I'm not even there though. I'm not even. I just want to get on with my life. I don't think about it. You know, I don't. There's a cat in my house. A strange cat just walked into my house. Anyway, yeah, kitty.
That's.
No, but I don't. You know, I don't have a message. You know, I don't have like live this way, or just live your life. I don't care what people do. You know, it's not my business to care what other people do. It's their life. They can do what they want with it. You know, I just live my life without really thinking about it. I just do what I want to do.
Okay, final question. What happens after you die?
Then we can stop talking about this religion.
Okay, final question. What happens when you die?
I don't know. I've never died.
And does it matter?
Does it matter what happens after you die? Well, it would if there's an afterlife. It would matter very much, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Okay.
But I don't see any reason to believe in an afterlife. No one's come back from the dead that I know of.
Yeah. Okay. Final, absolute final question.
Jesus Christ.
Could these crazy fundamentalist heaven or hell people be right?
Could they be right?
Yeah, that's the final question.
My question would be, could they be wrong?
No, you can't. You can't counter the question with a question.
Why not?
Answer the question. Could they be right? What if they could they be right? Is that a possibility in your mind?
I don't think that they are. Personally, I don't see any reason to believe that they are right. I don't think they are. And the odds of any one religion having all the answers, and just, you know, their God so weak and insipid that they can only reveal themselves through some book that a bunch of desert dwellers wrote, you know, thousands of years ago, and you know, decided to reveal himself through, you know, hiding himself and just revealing himself through his horrible people, being right about anything. Well, not the afterlife, but being right about anything is very remote.
Yeah.
So it's not really something I think about. But of course they could. They could be right.
Yeah.
And if they are, I'm going to enjoy hell. There'll be some interesting people I want to meet, like Stalin and Ted Bundy, and, you know, have lunch with Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah.
Listen to AC/DC, you know.
Well, this has been fantastic. So John is the author of Escaping Fundamentalism, and his book comes out next month. And so,
yeah, you can watch my movie if you want to watch a real Christian a real Christian do his thing. And do a plug for my movie there, Mark.
We can do a link. We'll put a link to that in the description.
Yeah, put a link to my movie, and let people, even the religious, let them fear and watch and wonder as the super Christian goes about his day.
Can you just end the podcast by saying "wicked sinners"?
You're all a bunch of wicked sinners.
Fantastic.
And you're going to hell.